Our programs offer many languages. Please visit suprememastertv.com/schedule.
Nos programas offrent plusieurs langues. Veuillez visiter suprememastertv.com/schedule.
Nuestros programas ofrecen varios idiomas. Visiten suprememastertv.com/schedule.
Наши программы предлагают много языков. Пожалуйста, посмотрите suprememastertv.com/schedule.
The most important lesson we can learn from animals is simply that we are animals too. We're a different kind of animal. In some ways, we have qualities that surpass theirs. In some ways, they have qualities that surpass ours.
Understanding Animal People Emotions. Books by Dr. Jeffrey Moussaieff Masson. Vegan, Part 1 of 2. Continue watching to find out more.
Vegan, not a worry in the world.
Should you have the pleasure of visiting the archipelago of Saint-Pierre and Miquelon, the locals would greet you with Bienvenue. That means welcome in French. Beloved viewers, I'm Caroline. The spiritual people of Saint-Pierre and Miquelon pray that your days are filled with peace and safety, as your benevolent vegan lifestyle helps safeguard our precious earth for current and future generations. Welcome to part 1 of the 2-part series, Understanding Animal People Emotions, books by Dr. Jeffrey Moussaieff Masson, vegan. Dr. Jeffrey Moussaieff Masson taught Sanskrit and Indian studies at the University of Toronto from 1969 to 1980. In 1970, he began studying to become a psychoanalyst at the Toronto Psychoanalytic Institute and was appointed projects director of the Freud Archives in 1980. An epiphany led him to give up both his professorship and his analytic career in the early 1990s. Dr. Jeffrey Masson has since written a number of books on the emotional life of animal people and explored our relationship to the animal people kingdom. He is an ardent vegan and animal people rights advocate. Today, we are very honored to have Jeffrey Moussaieff Masson with us to speak about his books.
So that began, I think, about 25 years ago. I started researching for a book that eventually came to be called When Elephants Weep, The Emotional Lives of Animals. The book became a surprising bestseller. New York Times bestseller. It sold over 1 million copies, which is amazing for a book like that. It's that it was telling people what they already knew. And I think people wanted vindication for believing, especially people who live with dogs or even cats or any animal, that these animals have emotions just like we do. You don't need to be a genius to realize that. But it had not been written about except in 1872 by Darwin. So it was a new idea and it made a big impression. And in that book, I wrote it with a science writer, and we wrote together, and she distanced herself from my conclusion, which was we can't eat animals anymore. So I became a strict vegetarian then, but by strict, I didn't know what veganism was. So strict for me meant just no animals, not animal products. I didn't think about cheese. I didn't think about honey. I didn't think about milk. Like most people, I would say 25 years ago, that was a novel concept. There were a few vegan, but very, very few then.
Dr. Masson's book, When Elephants Weep, shows the complex emotional lives of animal people in a way that can change the way the reader views these precious beings forever. We asked Dr. Masson why he dedicated himself to the exploration of animal people's emotions.
I think I became fascinated by the emotional lives of animals, partly because it was so hard to understand the emotions of humans. They're much more, I was about to say complex, but I don't think it's more complex. They're more devious, you know? Dogs don't pretend to hate you when they really love you or pretend to love you when they really don't. And I mean, it's just there, you know, and that made me realize that's probably true for all animals. They can't hide their emotions.
Turn vegan, the least you can do for your soul.
Cherished viewers, let's take a moment to pray that all animal people be treated with respect and kindness. We'll be right back here on Supreme Master Television. Welcome back to Understanding Animal People Emotions. Books by Dr. Jeffrey Moussaieff Masson, Vegan, Part 1 of 2. Dr. Masson talks about his journey to becoming vegan.
When I first began doing my research, I met a number of people that were like-minded in purely scholarly terms. And there was a book that very, very much influenced me called The Question of Animal Awareness. And it was a fantastic book. And I contacted the author, who was very well known because he'd been the man who discovered bat sonar. So he was really an extraordinary scholar. He was at Harvard. I'm not the pioneer that, say, Peter Singer was, who wrote about this in 1975. And even he wasn't the first. I mean, there were people at that same time, 1971, 1972, 1973, not much before that, interestingly. But then he began this movement, and vegetarianism has really taken over. Mm-hmm. It's really quite extraordinary to see in the last, I would say, just 2 or 3 years, there's been an immense change in opinions of influential people right around the world. I came to this 18 years ago because I had announced in my book that I was vegetarian in When Elephants Weep, and I happened to meet Cesar Chavez, the great labor organizer in California. And I said, you and I have something in common. We're vegetarians. He said, I'm not a vegetarian. I said, I thought you were. He said, no, I'm a vegan. I said, what's that? I said, what? Explain that to me. He said, I can't. I've got to run. And he was off. And, you know, kind of stayed in my mind. What did he mean by that? I mean, I really had no clue. And very few people did 25 years ago. So in any event, when Elephants Weep was a big success, then I wrote Dogs Never Lie About Love, and that also was a big success. Each sold 1 million copies. And then my publisher said, look, what would you like to do next? I said, well, I looked at the emotions of wild animals. I've looked at the emotions of dogs, but I've never looked at the emotions of animals on a farm. I'd like to do that. And they said, sure, go ahead. I called it The Pig Who Sang to the Moon. And it was about the emotional lives of animals who live in quotation marks on a farm, because it's not much of a life. And that's what I discovered. I went around the world and met farmers everywhere. And invariably they tell me how much they love their animals. And I just got tired of it. And I said, look, how can you tell me you love your animals when you're going to kill them in a few weeks or a few months or a few years? I mean, what kind of love is that? I'm sorry, I can't call that love. I do not believe you can live on a farm, take care of animals, claim you love them, and then kill them one day or send them off to be slaughtered. The words slaughter and love just don't go together.
No.
And I realized that. So at the end of that book, I announced that I was becoming vegan. I could no longer justify eating cheese, drinking milk, eating eggs or honey, or wearing wool, or doing leather, anything that came from an animal. I had to abjure, I had to totally distance myself from any use of an animal.
Dr. Masson speaks of the most important lesson that we can learn from animal people.
The most important lesson we can learn from animals is simply that we are animals too. We're a different kind of animal. In some ways, we have qualities that surpass theirs. In some ways, they have qualities that surpass ours. We can't fly. We can't run as fast. We're not as powerful. I mean, there's so many things we can't do. Nobody has a problem with admitting that. I think there are certain areas of emotional intelligence where animals are our superior. And then I give them some examples which they can relate to. I say, look, when it comes to friendship, dogs are much superior to us. I mean, you just walk down the street here in Bondi with a dog, and they want to stop and talk to every dog they meet. They're just friendly. They love it. Oh, there's a dog. I want to meet him. I want to talk to him. But it's really true. Every animal lives in the moment. Animals don't obsess about things they've done or things they're going to do. It's what they're doing right now. And that is a lesson for us.
Our heartfelt thanks to Dr. Jeffrey Masson for sharing his uplifting insights into the animal people world. We look forward to hearing more in the next part of this series. For more information on Dr. Jeffrey Masson and his books, please visit jeffreymasson.com.
Every animal should be free to live a happy life. They should just exist for the reason of existing. Joey Carpstrong, vegan.
Luminiscent viewers, thank you for your devoted company today. Join us again on Friday, April 8th for part 2 of Understanding Animal People Emotions. Books by Dr. Jeffrey Moussaieff Masson, vegan. Coming up next is Ukrainian Baroque Glory, St. Michael's Golden Domed Monastery, right after noteworthy news here on Supreme Master Television. May your life be adorned by the glory and wonder of the divine.
Our programs offer many languages. Please visit suprememastertv.com/schedule and suprememastertv.com/UL